Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 253 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 27 of A Feast for Crows, that's Jaime 3.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you, unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee standard tier that includes spoilers. Then we will spoil things for you. Regardless, we will hopefully provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes that come with the episode. They'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. How
was your visit with son number one?
Son number only.
I mean, I realise you don't have two sons, but yeah.
Child number one. It was a really good time. We had a really good time, and for starters, our flight to and fro both went off on time. No delays, no cancellations, nothing.
I don't know what that must be like, Mackelly. It doesn't happen to me.
It was quite remarkable. I kept expecting there to be an issue, and there just wasn't. No, we had a really nice time. I'm sad to report that there were no sightings of celebrities or celebrity children of celebrities. If they did, they were really sly about it.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't have much to report. There was a slightly funny incident on the family call. So on the family call, it was me and my brother and my sister and her husband, Mark, who listens.
Uh-huh.
So Sarah and Mark said Mark went to get something from the freezer, like a lollipop or something like that, and he came back and he said, "God, that thing is frozen solid." And he said, "Rob, how do you turn down the freezer?" And it didn't really register with me, but it's a weird thing to ask somebody who doesn't live in your house.
Right.
Now, I will say, my brother, because he runs a bed and breakfast type thing, he has a lot of practical skills with that kind of thing. So,
sure.
I see why you wouldn't ask me. I see why you would ask him.
Right.
But I can't see why you'd ask anyone. I mean, it's your house. Go investigate and figure it out. None of that registered. I mean, I'm saying all that now with hindsight. At the time, I was just like, okay. And we moved on. About 15 minutes later, it occurred and it came up in conversation that they were visiting Rob. They were in France.
Now it all makes sense.
So it was Rob's freezer they were talking about. I was like, you know what's funny? I thought you just asked Rob how to fix your freezer.
Just randomly. Hey, do you have to know how to fix my freezer?
And then thinking back on it more, it was also very strange that he was so sure. He said, you open the fridge and it's top left, you'll see a dial. It was like, has he visited there?
Oh, yeah, I can see your confusion. They weren't his only guests, according to the Facebook page. It looked like they were, that the farm was visited by a bunch of horses as well.
Oh, yes, he's had a horse invasion.
It sure looked like it, yeah.
I believe it's a neighbour's horse who keeps escaping. But he always has animal things. Remember he had that cat who kept coming to visit and he kept trying to get rid of it?
And he was up on a ladder doing something involving animals, was he not?
Oh, he's usually up on a ladder. He still to this day talks about the micro-mort thing that we talked about, the millionth of a death. He keeps a tally every week of what he's been up to and how many it was worth.
How many micro-morts he tallied this time.
And they begin to build up, you keep doing 50 here and 50 there,
Right.
It'll take you a long time to get to 1 million, but not forever. All right, let's get down to business. How did we leave Jaime Lannister? Last we saw of Jaime, he was unsuccessfully trying to broker peace between Cersei and their uncle Kevin, while fielding barbs from Kevin about the twins' incestuous relationship. He could not help but notice similarities between Cersei and the Mad King Aerys, and implored her to quit making foes of friends. Since then, he's appeared in a Cersei chapter where he called her drunk or stupid. She's decided she must rid herself of him. Mackelly, let's find out how she does that.
Okay. Well, Cersei doesn't like Jaime's beard. She says he looks like Robert, only Robert's beard was black. Jaime's beard is a mixture of gold with an ever-increasing amount of silver. And he looks washed out in his Kingsguard white, and basically he's a one-handed ghost of what he once was. Jaime says that if she relieves him of this folly, he'll shave.
Cersei's not having it. She's tired of everyone balking her. The folly is that he will end the siege of Riverrun, sort out matters in Harrenhal, and find Wylis Manderly in the name of King Tommen. Cersei asks if he lost his courage along with his hand. Jaime says he swore an oath to Lady Catelyn never to take up arms against the Starks or the Tullys. Cersei is unmoved.
Big shock there.
Mm-hmm.
The Queen also wants Sir Osmond Kettleblack to command the Kingsguard in Jaime's stead. Jaime hears Tyrion's voice telling him that she's been having sex with Lancel, Osmond Kettleblack, and Moonboy for all he knows. Jaime says it's his call, and it'll be Sir Loras Tyrell who'll command. He's thrice the man that Osmond Kettleblack is, and he doesn't leer at her chest the way that Kettleblack does. Cersei slaps his face and commands him to leave.
Part of him is glad to be leaving King's Landing. He is tired of the smallest council, as the small folk have dubbed Cersei's small council. He mounts up at the head of his small force and calls Payne to ride alongside him. The former King's Justice and Addam Marbrand were part of his must-haves for this mission, and Cersei did not argue.
As they ride through the city, Jaime notices the lack of fanfare from the small folk compared to when Lord Mace led the Tyrell force through. It seems they prefer roses over lions, a fact that Cersei should take note of. Outside the gates, his main host awaits. Fewer than 1,000 men, but enough for his purposes. There's already an army outside of Riverrun. In a siege, that's just more mouths to feed.
The King's Road was safe and full of life and vegetation this close to King's Landing. He knew that would change as they neared the Riverlands. That night, the host made camp at Castle Hayford. Jaime wore his golden hand to dinner. As little Lady Ermesand was brought out to greet her guests, talk turned to her missing husband, Tyrek Lannister. There's been no trace of the boy since the riot in King's Landing. If he was alive, why no ransom? If he was dead, where was the body? Jaime figures his cousin's body was dumped in the river, but he also muses over the usefulness of a Lannister captive by someone who knows how to use information as a weapon. One person comes to mind, Lord Varys.
Aha. It would have been easy to take the boy if you knew that the riot was coming, and Varys knew everything. He also conveniently did not see Myrcella off that day. The thought of Varys' slimy smile makes him want to hit something. He finds Ser Ilyn and beckons him to follow. In the courtyard, the pair spars. It doesn't take long for Ilyn to gain the upper hand. See what I did there?
Oh, well done.
By the end, Jaime was bruised and battered. Jaime vows to spar every day until he's as good with his left hand as he was with his right. A clacking laughter was Ilyn's response.
Nightly the pair clash. Jaime makes excuses for their absences, but knows the others aren't buying it. The host comes upon the tower house of Sir Roger Hogg. He tells them of the troubles they've had. First it was lions led by Amory Lorch, who killed some sheep and tried to burn the men out of the tower. Next were White Star wolves looking for Jaime himself. Then it was the four-legged wolves prowling about. Jaime's only advice is to plant and hope for a final harvest.
As they approach Harrenhal, the road becomes desolate and signs of war are everywhere. Inside Harrenhal, the brave companions have let the place go, and let's face it, it was a pretty low bar to begin with, so...
How would anyone know?
One man recognizes Jaime as the Kingslayer. Jaime tells him and a man named Rafford to bring him Vargo Hoat's head. When it's produced, Rafford tells Jaime that on the mountain's orders, the rest of the goat was fed to the prisoners and to Hoat himself. Ugh.
Charming.
Yeah.
Jaime announces that until Peter Baelish's return, Sir Bonifer Hasty will hold the castle. Anyone who wants to can stay if he will allow it. The rest will ride with Jaime. The Mountain's men look uneasy. They are owed. The Mountain promised them riches. Hasty offers them land for their service, but they want the gold they were promised. Jaime suggests they take it up with the Queen in King's Landing.
Good luck with that. Jaime wants to see the captives. Unfortunately, no sign of any bloody mummers, and only 3 of Lady Went's staff remains. A cook, a blacksmith, and a girl named Pia. Jaime recalls Pia from his time at Harrenhal. Qyburn had sent her to his bed to please him. The pretty girl isn't so pretty any longer, as the mountain broke her nose and knocked out half her teeth. But thankfully, Wylis Manderly is alive and well. Enough. When Jaime tells him he's sending him home to White Harbor, the big man breaks down and weeps.
At dinner, Sir Bonifer says he wants none of the Mountain's men, nor Pia. He will not have his pious men tempted by her. Jaime agrees to take the lot. Sir Bonifer is confident that he and his holy 100, of whom only 86 remain, can hold Harrenhal. Jaime hopes the soldiers can fight as well as they pray. Jaime wants to be alerted if any brave companions are found. Hasty says if they repent, he will embrace and pray with them before taking their heads. Sins can be forgiven. Crimes require punishment.
Jaime looks for Ilyn when he leaves the Hall of 100 Hearths. He wants a fight. Instead, he finds Riverrun at Connington standing over the bear pit.
I think he's going to get one anyway.
He wanted to see where the bear fought the maiden not so fair, adding that a naked Brienne might make the bear flee in terror.
Jaime says she was not naked, and it seems like Ronnet knows her. We were betrothed, Ronnet responds. The news stuns Jaime. The betrothal was Ronnet's father's idea. He tells Jaime that when they met, she was as tall as him, despite being 6 years younger, had no breasts, and nearly choked on her tongue when she tried to speak. The bear was less hairy than that freak.
Wham! Red Ronnet got no more words out as Jaime smashes him across the face with his golden hand. Ronnet tumbles down the steps, his lantern crashing to the floor. You are speaking of a highborn lady. You call her by her name. You call her Brienne. Spitting a gob of blood, Ronnet calls her Brienne the Beauty.
Well, I'm going to say, Mackelly, your conjecture that the last sentence of the chapter is always important isn't in this case.
No? Yeah, you don't think?
No, I mean, he's kind of agreeing to Jaime's beat down demands.
Well, yes. I think it's more of the last bit of the chapter.
I see. The last bit, yes. I mean, Jaime may have just made an enemy of Red Ronnet Connington.
Right.
And there might be more to all this, but the last sentence was a throwaway line.
Right. Well, calling her Brienne the Beauty was the kind of mocking term that they used at Highgarden.
Yes,
so
I remember.
Maybe he was calling her Brienne, but also throwing it a bit in Jaime's face that I'll call her Brienne, but I'm going to add the beauty in there. But I think that the last bit does show that Jaime really does have a connection with Brienne.
Yeah. I've got more to say about this whole incident later on.
Yes.
Believe me.
All right.
Let's go back to the beginning. Cersei is again removing from her sphere anyone who in any way stands up to her.
Yep.
It's complete madness.
Uh-huh.
Anybody could do this mission, and almost anybody but would be better suited to it than Jaime, at least physically. I will say that he does have the authority to knock some heads together at Harrenhal, and possibly, I think the siege at Riverrun is going to have to be sorted out by diplomacy.
Right.
And you need someone who can speak with authority for the king to have actual diplomacy going on. Otherwise, you're going to be constantly sending crows back and forth to King's Landing.
Right.
Or ravens, rather, I should say.
Yeah, you're right. Jaime does have the clout to handle these tasks, but he's not the only one. Randyll Tarly is already in Maidenpool. He's a pretty high lord that could be given the authority to speak on the king's behalf.
That's very true. I would say Randyll Tarly is, you're right, better suited and also wasted in Maidenpool.
Right. He's already done a lot of what he needs to do there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mooten could handle it from here. He's
exactly.
Already, and let's not forget that Kevin Lannister, the eldest living Lannister, is being wasted right now because of a feud between him and Cersei. So, he's someone else who could definitely handle this task and have the clout and speak with the authority. But Jaime reminds us that he swore an oath to Cat not to take up arms against the Tullys or the Starks. And Cersei's right. It was at knife point, but it was also part of the agreement for freedom. Otherwise, he'd still be rotting in that Riverrun dungeon.
Right, yes, exactly. Yes, a coerced vow is not worth anything, but a coerced vow when you take the other side of the deal, that should mean something.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jaime's trying to be this new, honor, live up to his word and stuff, and this definitely goes very much against that.
So I wonder if that could backfire to a certain extent then, because when he gets, assuming he gets to Riverrun, is he going to balk from doing what he has to do because he wants to honor that vow,
Right. Yeah, could be. I could see that. Now, Jaime wanted Ser Ilyn Payne and Addam Marbrand as part of the Riverlands agreement, and Cersei was likely happy to get rid of Addam Marbrand because he is a childhood friend of Jaime, and Cersei sees enemies pretty much everywhere these days. As you said, anyone who isn't 100% a Cersei yes man, she wants out of there. And
what's Addam Marbrand been doing in King's Landing?
He is commanding the Gold Cloaks.
He was commander of the Gold Cloaks. So
yes.
It was hinted at in this chapter, but I forgot to look it up. But,
yes, and he makes sense. He and Jaime are longtime friends, and he is he's a pretty useful knight, and you could see why Jaime would want him involved. At first glance, you would think, why in the world do you care whether Ser Ilyn Payne is with you or not? Until you start thinking, about Payne can't read, can't write, and can't speak. So he's the perfect person to train in private with when you don't want anyone sharing how it's going.
Very true. Plus, when you arrive at the walls of Riverrun, having that guy there sharpening his sword might chill the hearts of the
maybe
rebellious fish as well.
Yeah, that's true too.
Jaime, as always, his feelings towards Cersei are complicated.
Yes.
He's clearly okay with getting away from her for a while, and that makes sense. But several times during that conversation, his lust towards her blazed within him, so it's a mess as usual.
Yeah, if at first it's kind of surprising that he doesn't want to be away from her as much as she wants him away from her when he says, relieve me of this duty and my razor is yours to command. He wants out of it initially, and you're thinking, why? That both of them are at each other's throats all the time. And then when he leaves her, he thinks, you know what? This is probably for the best because just the very sight of her makes me angry. And in between those two, he wants to turn her punches into kisses and rip her dress off. So he's all over the place when it comes to his feelings toward her.
He never mentions it, but I wonder if some of his hesitation about leaving is because, I wonder if he's shaken by Joffrey's death, He knows that Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella are his children.
Right.
And one of them died without him protecting him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of them is beyond his ability to protect. Tommen, though, is right there, and he can protect him as he is sworn to do.
Yeah, there could be some of that.
And also, Cersei is Cersei. She's always been like this to a certain extent.
Right.
She's always been fiery of temper, and, she didn't like being balked when she wasn't the Queen Regent.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think he's always thought of his kids as more like nephews and niece.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is possibly some of that. When you started that, I thought you were going to say that maybe he's reluctant to go because of Tyrion's words. She is sleeping with Lancel and Osmond Kettleblack.
Well, that's true.
And now he's leaving, and he's leaving Cersei and Osmond Kettleblack, without
through their devices.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And speaking of that, she wants Osmond Kettleblack to command the Kingsguard in Jaime's absence. And we know that she doesn't respect his intellect. She said as much in the last Cersei chapter, that he was kind of a bit of an oaf, and reminds her of Robert.
Yeah, I will say, I think there's an obvious reason there. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, or acting Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, has reason to be alone with the Queen Regent at various points.
Yes. And I think it is. It could very well be that, but it's also, if it's Osmond, it's not Loras.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Right.
And
she definitely doesn't like Loras, and so spending time alone with him would annoy her. And the fact that he doesn't lust after her probably annoys her too.
Yes, it probably does. And that he is Marjorie's brother and a Tyrell and doesn't want him commanding anything if she can prevent it.
Yeah, but the funny thing about that for me is that some of this reflects on Cersei's character, because the decision to make it Loras makes a lot of sense. Loras is a better fighter and a smarter person than Osmond Kettleblack. But Cersei can't hear anyone disagree with her without seeing it as insubordination. You know, she can't hear it as useful advice. She herself would never say something to anyone that was to help them. It would be to help her.
Yes. Right. That's
if someone says A and she says B, it's not she's trying to help them, it's because she wants B.
Right.
And so she's never going to grow. I mean, she's too narcissistic, and she's never going to improve.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Unless you bring her to heel in some way, but of course now she's got untrammeled power.
Yes.
And so
without Tywin was the only person that could bring her to heel, even when she was Queen Regent. And now with him gone, there's really nobody that she respects enough. And nobody has the power, regardless of whether she respects him or not. But you know what? Her mentioning of Osmond Kettleblack commanding the Kingsguard does? It certainly does. It does not help ease Jaime's thoughts of her affair with Osmond Kettleblack. It only inflames it more.
Yeah, absolutely. So the party headed north includes, as we mentioned, Ilyn Payne and Addam Marbrand. Redrun at Connington. We knew of him because we've already heard the story of him offering her a rose when she was only a child, right? She was only like 10 years old or something, and him saying, "This is all I'm ever going to give you," which is just monstrous, you know.
Yep.
And then this Sir Bonifer Hasty, who this name didn't mean anything to me, but he's very pious. But he runs a tight ship, it seems. I mean, Jaime was saying that his Holy 100, as they're called, didn't distinguish themselves at the Battle of the Blackwater, but they didn't disgrace themselves either.
Yeah, I found that thought to be something to ponder, because he's right. I mean, Tyrion distinguished himself. We should call him Super Tyrion, I guess, distinguished himself during that battle. So it was a lot. It was chaos, you know. Of course, it was a big battle. It was chaotic. But you would think if they're as good as their reputation is, then they should have probably done something noteworthy.
They appear to have only lost 14 of their number, so they're not stupid.
Right.
I mean, they're not reckless, it seems. And also, they're well turned out, right? He mentions that they look good.
Yes.
And so there's a sort of discipline there, which I think is probably a good thing to bring to Harrenhal.
Oh, yeah.
So Cersei might have sort of stumbled onto a good choice for holding Harrenhal here, but I would say more by luck than by good judgment.
I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
So while they're at dinner with little Irmisen, with the Castellan of Castle Hayford, and they trot out little baby Irmisen Hayford, who's the lady of the house, even though she is a toddler, and she was married to Tyrek Lannister.
Right.
And Tyrek Lannister...
You're going to tell me how Tyrek ties in with the rest of the Lannisters.
That's right. I like it. Tyrek.
I can tell. You've got that family tree look in your eye.
So Tyrek is the son of Tygett Lannister and Darlessa Marbrand.
Oh, I know who Tygett Lannister is. Please, sir, please.
Yes.
Tygett Lannister is the fourth child of... what's Tywin's father called? Titus.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
That's right. He's the next to youngest.
Yes.
Of the...
Gemma is older.
Yeah, Gemma is older. Kevin's older. Tyrion, Tywin is older.
It's Tywin, Kevin, Jenna... What's this one called?
Tygett.
His name.
Tygett,
yes.
And the youngest is Jerian.
That's right.
So Tygett, who is the next to youngest, died of a pox. And you know, the Marbrands and the Lannisters have a history of marriage because Tywin, Tygett, Kevin, Jenna, Jerian, their mother was Jane Marbrand. So,
okay.
A lot of...
I thought you were going to say they all married Marbrands. I was like, God, that's a lot.
No.
You just meant their mother was.
Their mother was Jane Marbrand. So, yes, Tygett's mother was a Marbrand, and he married a Marbrand. So, but I find the Tyrek's disappearance to be one of the more intriguing mysteries in our story, and I feel like it often gets overlooked for kind of the bigger ones, like who is Jon Snow's mother, and you know, up until it was solved, who killed Jon Arryn, and what are Illyrio and Varys plotting, and who killed JR. Oh wait, sorry, that was that was an 80s American TV reference. I don't know if that landed outside of the States.
The youth are all getting their coats right now. Yes, I'd forgotten it too. I mean, and it is strange because Jamie's thought about this is absolutely right. If alive, there'd be a ransom request by now. If dead, you'd expect the body to be found. I mean, he says, well, maybe it just got thrown in the river or something. But why go to that trouble? Just run away. If you kill this guy in the riot,
right,
run away.
There's not video cameras that they're going to...
Exactly. Empty the pockets and hightail it out of there. Why throw him in the river?
Yes.
So yeah, that is a strange one. His idea that Varys might have been aware that the riot was coming and sort of like... but why choose a minor Lannister?
Yeah.
And hide him away for years? Right.
It's all circumstantial evidence at this point. Varys was not present at Myrcella's send-off. And Tyrek... Varys is the Master of Whispers. He's supposed to know all. So if he knew that this riot was coming, then it would make sense that this would be a really good opportunity for him to take Tyrek. But again, why? Why would he do it? Now, we know that Varys and Illyrio are working on some sort of plot involving a Targaryen reemergence. Could Tyrek play some sort of role in that?
Interesting.
Now, I did a little Google searching to see what the internets were saying, and some were suggesting that Varys has Tyrek captive somewhere and is grooming him to be a Lannister ally if or when the time comes to enact whatever plot they're working on.
You might feel that if Tyrek gets brought out at this moment in time, that he might have been brainwashed by this point.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what the thought is.
Right, but that makes him, as an ambassador to the rest of the Lannisters, seem a little bit compromised,
Yeah, and he's also not he's not like next in line, I mean, yes, Tywin's dead and Jaime's in the Kingsguard, but Lancel and Martin are both still alive. Kevin was older than Tygett, so, Kevin's children and Kevin have a better claim than Tyrek would.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, presumably Gemma being married to a Frey wouldn't count in this, but she also has children too.
Right.
And she's older. So again, questions of primogeniture. I've just finished watching House of the Dragon, so
okay.
Those questions are
yes, they are. But is he
hot on the heels there?
Is he forgetting about another agent of chaos in the realm? One Peter Littlefinger Baelish?
The only name I think of when you say those words is Peter Baelish.
Right. Now, we know, you and I and our lovely listeners know that Littlefinger is playing the Game of Thrones. But I think he tends to get overlooked by a lot of the characters in the game because he's kind of the jokester, the money guy. You know, he's small of stature. He doesn't come from a great house. And so I think maybe Jaime's overlooking that possibility.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghosts Harrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah, well, it's a mystery for sure.
It is.
So the Crown lands, and then as he moves into the Riverlands, Jaime notices a complete disaster area. I mean, if winter is coming, then famine is definitely coming.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's nobody... The only thing that might save them from famine, honestly, is that there's so many people are dead that there actually isn't that much need for food. But
that is an unfortunate possible side effect of all the death.
You kind of wonder who the various bands of brigands that still haunt the Riverlands are actually terrorizing these days, because everyone's fled or dead, it seems. But the one thriving group is this pack of wolves who continue to grow both in number and notoriety, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 2 chapters in a row. Where were we last week? Last week was Sam. So
Sam,
2 chapters ago when we were at Brienne, we heard about the wolves. And speaking of wolves, Sir Roger Hogg had trouble with White Star wolves, and most people probably figured that out, but it's a reference to the Karstarks hunting Jaime after Cat released him. Their sigil is a white sunburst on black. So that's the White Star wolves.
Nice.
And you know, Amory Lorch was told to harry the Riverlands. You know, we knew this when it happened, but also Jaime mentions it in this chapter. But maybe he's not a very good map reader, or he was not consulting the map, because as Sir Roger Hogg points out, his keep is not in the Riverlands, it's in the Crownlands. So
for Amory Lorch, it's like, you see that river over there? Good enough for me.
Right.
You're getting it.
And someone else comes up in this chapter. The brothers Woad come up in this chapter. The summary was already long enough, so I don't think we mentioned them in the summary.
But their keep had been completely destroyed. There was nothing left of it, right?
It was 2 brothers that were landed knights, and their keep had been destroyed. Only a few broken men, a few outlaws were found kind of hiding amongst the ruins. But we actually know one of the brothers Woad.
We do?
Yes, Wylis Woad accompanied Cat to the Eyrie when she took Tyrion captive. He was actually the first to stand up and pledge support when she asked for it at the end at the crossroads.
Well, good for Wylis. And also, he's got a repeated letter. He's a Wylis Woad.
He's a Wylis Woad. You're right.
After books of none of them, they're out suddenly everywhere.
All of a sudden.
I noticed that as we were writing the notes for this chapter, that he's going to Riverrun and Harrenhal, and we shorten those to RR and HH in the notes, and I was like, it's everywhere.
It doesn't seem, unfortunately, that our Wylis Woad fared very well during the war, so I hope he and his brother are okay. He seemed like a good guy. And, And like I mentioned, the outlaws were hiding in the keep, and Jaime had them hung, including a Lannister man, a man with a red Lannister cloak. Well, clearly, they didn't get Maribald's message about taking pity on broken
Yes,
men and trying
yes.
to rehabilitate them.
Only we heard that, Mackelly.
Yeah, I guess so.
If I were them, when I jumped out and realized that I'd tried to rob a force of 1,000 men by mistake, I would have said, thank God you're here, Jaime Lannister. I was looking for my commanding officer. What should I do?
Right. I've been searching and searching. I thought maybe you were down in the basement of this keep.
I've been terrorizing every White Star wolf I've seen, let me tell you. So Jaime's funny about nicknames. He confidently asserts that he'll never be referred to as Golden Hand, even though some are sort of like mentioning it as a possible nickname for him, because he'll always be the Kingslayer. Right. But later on he starts toying with names that he might pick up, like the Just, basically for executing this poor Lannister, a broken man.
Right.
The Cruel perhaps was more close to it.
Yeah, he thinks maybe he will be called Golden Hand the Just if he keeps executing outlaws.
That's kind of a Jaime thing to actually dream on the inside of what might be while verbalizing to the world what can never be, like no, it's not going to happen,
Right. Yep. I know what you mean.
So he is learning to fight again with Ilyn Payne. It's hard going, but people do get there. People do learn to use their offhand for all kinds of things.
Sure. He could ask.
Broke my.
Unfortunately, he can't ask Corn Halfhand.
That's true.
But Corn Halfhand
he only
did
had he had 1.5 hands.
True. He has a half advantage over Jaime.
Yeah. When I was younger, I broke my hand playing soccer, and I was in a cast, and it was my right hand, and I had to do all kinds of things with my left hand that I'd never done before. It was a challenge. It really was.
I'm sure.
But you do learn it. I mean, 4 weeks in that cast, I was pretty adept at doing things with my left hand afterwards. Writing, no, not so much, but pretty much anything else.
And now you're ambidextrous. Or did it fade?
No, it's all gone. You have to put my right hand in a cast, otherwise I'm going to use my right hand.
Right, me too.
He does mention that his shield slips off his golden hand as he's fighting.
Yeah.
But that could be corrected, and the person I thought of who could do that kind of thing is Tyrion.
Oh, yeah?
Get Tyrion involved. Hey, Tyrion, can you design something that would hold that shield in place?
Right.
Tyrion would be like that. That was the first thing he'd come up with.
Yeah, just like the design for his saddle and Bran's saddle.
For Bran's saddle, exactly. But he'll never be Jaime again, not in terms of the fighting prowess.
No.
But if he keeps practicing like this, he might not die at the hands of the first hedge knight who attacks him.
Yes, and that's progress. Because
that's definitely progress, because that's where he's been for a while. Yeah.
He'd have to outrun the hedge knight at this point.
Right. So at Harrenhal, things are pretty much as you expect them to be, with the Mountain's men are left to their own devices. Cannibalism. Auto-cannibalism, which is fantastic cruelty, and brutality, all served nightly. I'm slightly surprised that Wylis Manderly was still alive. I mean, he was a big fella, so he had a lot of sort of like, calories to burn.
Reserves.
Before he starved to death in those dungeons. Exactly, yeah. Which is good news for Cersei's plans, right? Because Cersei required him to be sent back to White Harbour as a thank you for the execution of Davos Seaworth.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And so that should help cement that bond she thinks she has with White Harbour.
Yes. Yeah. If he wasn't alive, I don't know what they would have done.
Yeah.
Like, well,
you know what they would do? They would put Davos's head back on his shoulders and start pumping his arms, see if they could bring him back.
They just need Thoros. Thoros, can you do something with this? Oh gosh. Yeah, and Jaime thinks that the Mountain's men are not as vile or violent as the brave companions, and I'm not quite sure I agree, and I'm not quite sure that Arya Stark would agree either.
Yeah, I think Jaime needs to live as a small folk for a little while to find out the truth of that, because it's pretty marginal.
He's clearly not aware of the march to Harrenhal with the tickler, and Hote's body parts being fed to the captives might have made him rethink his feelings on the brave companions versus the Mountain's men.
I will say, I think to the small folk, it's a complete tie. They're both monstrous groups who'll do unspeakable things. I think when you hear reports, there is something particularly vile about what the bloody mummers do.
Yeah. Although they didn't make Jaime eat his hand, so
that's true.
There's that.
Is true. Yeah. So in the notes, I noticed that you referred to him meeting a man. And I wondered why you didn't give his name, and then I remembered what his name was.
Yes.
So for those who listen with their kids in the car, we're going to call the man Poop Mouth, but he has a poopier name than that in the book.
S-word mouth.
That's why we didn't name him.
Yes, but we've actually met him and Rafford before. So
you have to remind me, Mackelly, as you know.
I will do. So
I like the way you pause dramatically, as if you think I'll come back with, "Oh, that's right."
Well, as soon as I give you this next detail, you'll remember at least one of them. Rafford is otherwise known as Raff the Sweetling.
From
Arya's prayer list.
Yes.
And
I did wonder that when I saw his name.
And he's called Sweetling because he's soft-spoken and he gives off the appearance of not being as rough around the edges as the others, but he's a very violent, sadistic person. He's the one that killed Lamy Greenhands when he couldn't walk and he said he needed to be carried. He also, we've heard that he killed a screaming mother after the mother's toddler was killed on the march to Harrenhal. And Chiswick was telling this story that Arya was hearing of the Mountain's men were gang raping a woman, and Raff killed the woman's brother who tried to intervene. So he's a terrible person. He might come across as a decent guy when he speaks, but he
just
is
being
not.
Soft-spoken. Yeah, don't be fooled. Yes.
Meanwhile,
and Poop Mouth, have we met him before?
We have, and he is not on Arya's prayer list because Arya didn't think that he was as cruel as the other Mountain's men. So, he got
perhaps because he gets bullied by them with his nickname.
He got the nickname because he has a foul mouth. So,
So of the entire Went Castle staff of Harrenhal, there's only 3 remaining, which is pretty terrible. The cook who opened the gate for the mountain, Ben Blackthumb, the blacksmith, and Pia, I guess she was probably a serving girl of some sort who was shanghaied into pleasuring Jaime, but he refused her advances.
Yes,
when Qyburn sent her to him.
Yeah. It's pretty hard to wrap your head around when you think about it. That of the entire staff,
the biggest castle in the 7 Kingdoms,
only 3 people remain. Now, some deserved it. Wylis from the Arya chapters when she was at Harrenhal. Terrible person. I can't feel much sadness or regret for him not surviving. And we know he didn't survive because Arya had him killed by one of her names. But, the rest of the whole household staff were just caught in a roulette of changing lords,
Yeah.
Each time
of course,
lord changed.
Some of them may have run away rather than been killed because I would not have worked another day in Harrenhal after the things that happened there.
If you could get away, I'm not sure exactly where you'd go because the Riverlands are so dangerous as it is, but if you can make it,
they're dangerous because of the people who live in Harrenhal.
Well,
I would get out of Harrenhal.
That is true. It's kind of the epicenter of it all.
Yeah.
The cook, Jaime tells us that the cook was the person that opened the gate that let Gregor in, so that Gregor took over for Vargo. Now the cook did that because he was angry at Vargo Hoat because Hoat had the cook's foot cut off. So that's the detail.
Would make most people angry.
Yeah. Ben Blackthumb, Gendry worked for him. That's the blacksmith.
Yes. Yeah.
And Gendry said that he came to Harrenhal as a boy, worked for the Lothstons and then the Wents. And so he had been there a long time, as you'll see in background. If he were there while the Lothstons were in control of Harrenhal, it's been a long time. But Pia, Arya knew her. She worked in the buttery. And when Arya knew her, when Arya was there, Pia was known for sleeping with Lannisters, but on the night of the weasel soup, Arya stumbled in on her, and Pia was with a bloody mummer. And then when Roose took over, he set up stocks for the women that slept with Lannisters, and Pia was one of those women, and they were there for any man to use, and Arya saw the women being used, so she's had a really, really terrible go of things since Shella disappeared.
So, one question I have from this, and I feel bad about moving on from Pia because that's just awful, but did Jaime acquiesce to this request because he thought he might get a chance of revenge on the bloody mummers? And that made me think, does he have his own version of Arya's prayer going in his head for the people he'd like to get revenge on?
Yes. I don't think he had a choice. I think he took the job, the task because he didn't have a choice. But I think this was probably a silver lining that he was thinking, well, at least maybe I'll get some revenge on the bloody mummers. Yeah. And boy, am I looking forward to that. And yeah, I think he did in some ways have an Arya-like prayer list because he was specifically looking for Pig and Shagwell and Zolo.
Shagwell. Yeah. And so two of those three were just recently killed by his good friend Brienne of Tarth. So
yes,
in some ways, well, it comes back around.
Yeah, and I think if he knew that, it might bring him some solace knowing that it was Brienne. Yeah. If not him, she would be the second best option to bring an end to them.
I love the near misses we get on information. Like last week when Sam bumped into Cat of the Canals, but they never realized who each other were, kind of thing. And this week, Jaime almost gets to hear where Arya is.
Yeah.
Because he's told that the Hound and a young boy killed... who did they kill at the end?
Tickler, Polliver, and the young squire.
That's right. And so if he just heard it was a young girl, his feelers would have gone up and he would have investigated that, and he might have had a clue as to where Arya was.
Possibly.
But he heard boy, he thought nothing more of it and moved on with his life.
Now, Harrenhal, as we've been discussing, has been just a revolving door of new lords.
Indeed.
And they have another new lord, Sir Bonifer Hasty. Yeah, he's now in charge of Harrenhal. He couldn't be a further departure from the Mountain or Amory Lorch or Vargo Hoat or
that definitely is how he comes across. Yes, for sure.
And Jaime is unsure what to make of this appointment because he figures it was probably Orton Merryweather that suggested Bonifer Hasty as Castellan. Jaime thinks it's because that Bonifer has the moniker of the Good, and that was probably good enough for Orton Merryweather. Oh, well, he must be good.
Honestly, it's what Harrenhal needs.
Right. But then Jaime does give the idea some credit because Bonifer is from the Stormlands, so he doesn't have any baggage here in the Riverlands. He's got no debts to pay anybody. Yeah. He's got no cronies to reward anybody. He is a sober man. He's a just man and a dutiful man. And I would say on paper, it's a vast improvement from Hoat and the Mountain. And I would say probably more than on paper. But on paper, he seems like the perfect person. I just worry a bit.
There's a but coming here.
Yeah, I just worry a bit about someone as pious as him having unilateral control in the castle. He could be harshly just in the name of the Seven.
Yes,
that's kind of what I worry about. Maybe he takes it the other direction too far. He's too strict.
Who's left to kill?
Well, yes. If there's anybody left in the castle, that's who I'm worried about.
So your 100, there's only 86 of them. What happened to the last 14? Well, they didn't pray hard enough.
But they, the Mountain's men ask for their gold, and he says...
Back gold.
Yes. And he says that what he will offer them is land. They will get a hide of land.
A hide.
For every man who stays. a second hide when they get married, and a third hide when their first child is being born. So I looked up what a hide was because I was curious how much it is. Is that a small amount? Is that a large amount? Based on my crack internet research, a hide appears to be around 120 acres.
Oh wow, it's a chunk of land.
Yeah. Now the AI generated response, so clearly I dug really deep into this, said that it depends on the quality of the land. If it's poor land, it could be more. If it's really good land, it could be less.
Okay.
But still, to me, that seems like a great deal of property. But the men were not interested at all.
Yeah. So we learned that Bonifer was once a promising knight. He was good at jousting, and he gave it up for religion. Jaime doesn't know why anyone would do that. Doesn't know why Bonifer did that. But you do know why Bonifer gave this up.
I do know why. I am going to tell in spoilers.
Oh, okay. I see. All right. Looking forward to that then. So I'll just end this with Red Ronnet Connington. I think he's an idiot because when he spoke to Jaime about Brienne, okay, I put his words down to he didn't realise the bond that formed between Jaime and Brienne. Why would he? Why would he know about the bond that formed when they walked from Riverrun all the way to King's Landing? You might have guessed it because it's two people walking 500 miles, you know.
Yeah. You
might figure that you talk a little bit and perhaps become friends of some sort. But it's worse than that because he knew that Jaime rescued her from the bear pit, risking his life to save her.
Yeah. Well, I do wonder about what details he knew, you know, like how the story got twisted. The story got to the point where she was naked fighting the bear. So I definitely take your point. I just wonder if maybe he thought that Jaime was just on hand. Was just present when it was happening and didn't realize that he came back to save her.
He knew she escaped. I mean, okay, you're right. There's nothing to prove that he knew, but still, you could infer that this guy might be friendly with the lady you're about to abuse verbally.
Yes, he sure did.
He's got a golden fist that he might punch you with.
Why hasn't he punched Ilyn with that fist yet? That's his secret weapon. The fist punch. Yeah,
I will say, I think he probably lost teeth to this punch, but I'm just amazed he had any teeth to lose. If this is his ability to read a room,
right? Yeah, his social cues need some work.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now we've talked a lot about Brienne and her betrothals. Ronnet was the second of the three. The first was the son of Brian Cairn. Brienne was 7 and the boy was 10 and he died of a chill. Then Ronnet, as we know. And then the final one was Sir Humphrey Wagstaff, who was 65 and Brienne was 16. And he's the one that insisted Brienne wear women's clothes. And she said, if you beat me in a duel, I'll do as you say. And Brienne defeated him. And that was the end of that betrothal. So that's where he falls in the order of her betrothals. But, you know, at first I thought maybe Ronnet had come to see the pit feeling guilty for his treatment of Brienne, kind of like Hyle Hunt seems to, have matured and thought, I treated her poorly. Maybe I can make up for it. At least that's how Hyle Hunt's coming across. You would think at first maybe that was what Ronnet was doing. But he never got to finish his thoughts because Jaime socked him. But if he was arriving at any level of remorse, he was going about it in a very odd way, calling her a freak and hairier than the bear. So I don't think that's where he was going, ultimately, is my point. I was very disappointed that he wasn't going anywhere remorseful.
As Jaime pulled back his fist, Connington said, wait, not finished.
But I do find it is kind of ironic that Jaime insists that Ronnet call her Brienne when he always calls Brienne wench.
Wench, yes, indeed. Yeah. All right, it's time for spoilers. Join us at the upper tiers of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer levels, and you get to hear what Mackelly has in store for us. All right.
Well,
I
you
will say,
have.
actually, I've got some spoilers.
You do.
I've been looking
You did a great job with
ahead a
these.
little bit. All right. Those are good spoilers. Thank you. What about some background?
All right, well, when Jaime hears of the Mountain ordering Vargo Hoat's removed body parts being served to the prisoners and to Hoat, he recalls Mad Lady Lawston, who bathed in tubs of blood and presided over feasts of human flesh right here in Harrenhal, if you believe the stories.
Nothing's really changed.
Right. Well, we've actually heard another story regarding Denell Lawston. If you remember, Brienne had been using a shield that she received from Jaime before setting out in King's Landing. It had the Lawston sigil on it. Several people reacted very negatively at the sight of her shield. Brienne eventually had the shield painted over. The woman who painted over the sigil with the new tree sigil in Duskendale told Brienne a story that she'd heard as a child. That giant bats flew out of Harrenhal on moonless nights to carry children back to the castle for Mad Denell's cookpots. So who was this Denell Lawston? Well, here's what I can tell you about her. She was the Lady of Harrenhal and head of House Lawston about 80-ish years ago. Like I said, Ben Blackthumb.
Ben Blackthumb.
Yeah, he's been around
got some years
a
under his belt.
long time. She actually led her men to support Brynden Rivers when he squashed the Second Blackfire Rebellion at White Walls. But it's said that she eventually turned to the black arts, which caused her to lose her sanity and bring about the end of House Lawston. Therefore, along with names like Mad Denell, she's also called the Last Lawston. After her death, the Wents next took possession of Harrenhal, followed by Jaina Slint, followed by Peter Baelish, followed by yada, 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 yada. Sir Bonifer Hasty.
So thank you for that, Mackelly. Comparison with the television show, there's nothing really to compare. Jaime does go to Riverrun, but we don't see his journey. It wasn't the bloody mummers who cut off his hands, so he's not after revenge from them. And this has become flyover country, really, for the
Right.
TV show. He relearns sword fighting with Bronn, not Ilyn Payne.
I remember, yeah.
And I did say that the deviation was only going to increase, and sure enough, it is doing.
It is.
Pedantry Corner, this could be considered a character decision, but I feel there's a bit of inconsistency in Bonifer Hasty. He offers forgiveness to anyone who's willing to, turn to the faith of the Seven, but he wants none of the Mountain's men left behind.
Right. But he's positive that they won't repent? He's not even giving them an opportunity?
Well, but he did. I mean, he offered them the tracts of land. They didn't seem very excited by the prospect, but then he said he didn't want any of them. It was like, well, make your mind up. What's the deal here? Let them. I mean, if you make the offer, let them decide.
Right. Yeah.
It seemed a strange. I don't know. There was something strange about it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it kind of threads the line between character decision and pedantry. So yeah, I think. Yep.
News and notes. What have we got for them?
Well, so we are scheduling a sustainer call. Haven't done it yet, but I'm going to schedule a sustainer call. This time I hope I remember to email this to your members box.
Good call. Yes.
We're going to set it for September 10th. Hopefully that holds. So keep an eye out. Our Buy Me a Coffee sustainers that have the sustainer call tiers, keep an eye out for an invite in your email.
Yeah, and just a reminder, small council members get invited to every one of those. Landed knights get invited to 2 per year. So if you're interested in finding out if those are fun, you could try out landed knight level and see if it's worth moving up to the small council level. You'd be more than welcome.
That's right. And of course, our Lord Paramounts and Royal Kingsguard will always be there.
All right, let's conclude this one. Jaime is back in the saddle, literally and metaphorically. He's probably glad to be away from King's Landing, although, as I said, his ardour for Cersei remains undiminished.
Yes, it does. He's all over the place when it comes to his feelings on Cersei. But I very much worry for the people of the Riverlands. But as you pointed out, I don't know how many of them there are left, but who's ever left, their winter is coming.
Winter is coming, exactly. I feel like a Stark every time I say it, but it's literally true.
Yeah.
And the Riverlands are not Dawn. They're going to feel the winter. They're going to need their stores filled, and there's no hope. Like Jaime said, I mean, he was still in the Crownlands when he said, your best bet is to plant one last set of crops and hope for a harvest before winter comes. It's like, and that's the Crownlands. That's further south.
Yeah, and how many of those people are going to end up in King's Landing, which is going to have its own level of famine?
If I was a hungry small folk, that's the direction I'd migrate. That's for sure.
Yeah. And Jaime is taking care of task 1 of his mission, secure Harrenhal. Up next, end the siege at Riverrun, a bit of a more challenging task, so we'll have to see how that goes. He did find Wylis Manderly, so actually he's taking care of tasks 1 and 2 of his mission.
True enough. And maybe Harrenhal has finally fallen into a safe pair of hands for once.
I hope
Bonifer
so.
Hasty doesn't seem like he's well named. It seems like he's very thoughtful and conscientious.
Yes, and, he is dubbed the Good, so, I mean, what could possibly go wrong with Sir Bonifer, you know?
Nothing. And Jaime's improving his swordplay, but he knows he can never be the same again. But like I said, it'll keep him safe in a battle.
Yeah.
Having,
in some level of a tussle, at least. He can hold his own, possibly not have to rely on outrunning his opponent.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't like violence, and I eschew it in all situations. But if Red Ron Connington says anything else, Jaime's welcome to punch him with that golden hand several more times, if you ask me.
Knock out any other remaining teeth. He and sweet, pretty Pia can discuss dental work, I guess.
Yeah.
And next up,
who have we got next?
Got a Cersei chapter, and
twin.
Yeah, it's twin chapters, and she might be not a great person, but her chapters are usually just stock full of information.
I will say, Jaime's just meandering up the Seven Kingdoms. Cersei is shenanigans in King's Landing, and we like that.
Right, so you're going to want to tune in for sure.
Well, there's 3 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and possibly a review. We'll read the good ones out. You could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. There you can join us at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest, and the upper tiers get you invited to our sustainer calls and to our boiler section, which Mackelly does such a good job of.
As did you today.
Thank you. Or you can make a donation directly to the cause at ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, one way to do it is you can send us a text. The link is at the top of every episode's show notes, and we've been getting them. We got a couple today. I enjoy reading them. I just realized I haven't been pointing them out to you all the time, so I need to do a better job.
I should go pay attention, yes.
But if you're also looking to keep up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, then I suggest you check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal, or on Facebook, Instagram. Always have a good time on Discord and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.